This starts when I'm 13. I'm walking home from school. It's me and the usual group of guys I'd walk home with because we all live on the same street. Jason and Curtis and this other Steve, who I'll call Steve Thorson. Not his actual name, but that's what I'll call him. And Steve Thorson's little brother Terry. He's there too. We get into this argument over, I can't remember what. Steve Thorson liked to run his mouth, and I guess this time I got into it with him over whatever it was. In the right circumstance, I could shoot my mouth off a fair bit myself. Thank God I've grown out of that. Anyway, I think it must have had something to do with shooting pool, because that's how we ended up at my place. My parents always made enough money to take care of us, me and my little brother. We never went to bed hungry, but we were still what you'd call a working class family. One of the few extravagances my father allowed himself was a pool table, which he kept in the basement. You know how most pool table felts are green? Dad's was orange. I loved that pool table. I spent so many hours down there in the basement, cue in my hand, practicing shots, shooting pool with my dad or my mom or my brother or friends. Time well spent, every second of it. Despite all that practice, I was never a very good pool player, but I was impulsive and I was proud, and I guess on this day I'm telling you about, Steve Thorson is bragging himself up as this killer pool shark, and I just can't resist the chance to prove him wrong. We go down to the basement. It's me, Jason, and Steve Thorson and Terry. I don't remember Curtis being there. He must have gone home. My brother isn't there either. He's about 8 at this time, still in elementary school, and the elementary school lets out an hour before the middle school, so he must be upstairs with my mom. He doesn't see any of this. We rack him up. We're probably playing 9-ball. I don't remember specifically, but 9-ball was always my favorite. Me and Steve Thorson go first. Jason takes winner. Or that's the plan, anyway. As it turns out, there is no winner. A few minutes into the game, Steve Thorson draws back his cue a little too far and bumps the end of it into the wall right next to where my dad's Sailor of the Month plaque is hanging. My dad is a U.S. Navy veteran. He enlisted after he graduated high school and was honorably discharged at the end of his service commitment. Then, about a year after I was born, he re-enlisted. I don't know if going back to the Navy was his way of avoiding having to be there for my terrible twos, but if it was, I don't take it personally. I tip my cap to him, in fact. That's a level of commitment I can't help but admire. The ship Dad served on during that second enlistment was the USS Guadalcanal, an Iwo Jima-class helicopter carrier. There was actually a pretty bad accident while my dad was aboard. A helicopter crashed during a training exercise. All 5 people aboard were killed. Dad's job on the Guadalcanal was in the boiler room. That experience served him well because after he got out of the Navy for good, he went to work in the boiler room of a state hospital and stayed there 30 years until he retired. While he was aboard the Guadalcanal, Dad was selected Sailor of the Month. And to commemorate it, they gave him this plaque. It had a black badge with an image of the Guadalcanal carved on it, and a little brass plate beneath that that said Sailor of the Month with my dad's name and the month and year he'd been selected engraved on it. The plaque hung there in the basement for as long as I can remember. Then Steve Thorson bumps it with his cue and knocks it off the wall, and it hits the concrete floor, and that black badge breaks in half. I'm standing there with my mouth open, staring down at it. I didn't even know it could break. I figured it was made out of iron or something. Turns out it was glass or plaster and had just been painted black. Steve Thorson tries to laugh it off at first, then he sees how upset I am over it and apologizes. Him and Terry and Jason all know enough to get lost right away, so now it's just me and my dad's broken plaque. My dad's never been abusive, but he does have a temper, and for that reason, I've always been a little scared of him. Plus, I know how much pride he takes in his naval service, so I figure if he sees the plaque like this, it's my ass. Dad will be home from work any minute, meaning I don't have time to effect any sort of extensive repairs. So what I do is, I get some duct tape, put a loop on the back of each half of the broken Guadalcanal badge, and stick them back together on the wooden base. Then I hang it back up on the wall where it was, and hope Dad doesn't suddenly feel like admiring his plaque tonight. The next morning I go down to the basement and check the plaque. It looks fine. Everything's still in place. So I go to school. I get home that afternoon, and my dad's truck is in the driveway. All of a sudden, there's this rock in my stomach. I go inside, drop my book bag in my room, then go downstairs to the basement. Dad's in his workshop, which is on the other side of the stairwell from the room with the pool table. He sees me at the bottom of the stairs, and he's like, "Hey, boy." Seems fine. "Hey," I say, "you're home early." I try to make it sound like I'm pleasantly surprised. He says he took half a day on account of working too much overtime a couple of weeks ago or something. The state wanted to make sure he didn't get too big of a paycheck. He chuckles. I chuckle along with him. I'm thinking to myself, okay, he doesn't know. I made it. I'm safe. I open the door into the room at the pool table. The badge is missing from the plaque. I close the door behind me and walk over to see what the hell happened, and there's the badge on the floor. I guess the tape came unstuck during the day. Now the badge is in 4 pieces instead of 2. Now the rock in my stomach feels about twice as big as it was a minute ago. I gather up the pieces of the badge and reposition the tape to hold everything together and press it back onto the base. It stays for now. Then I go to the other end of the room where there's this old couch and my mom's stereo set up in the corner and my Nintendo hooked up to this old TV. And I play video games and listen to the radio until I hear Dad go upstairs. I don't remember exactly what video games I'm playing, but I'm going to guess Batman Return of the Joker because it's an awesome NES game and I'm really into it at the time. Once Dad's upstairs, I go over to the shop. Dad has this old freezer that he cut off the top of a refrigerator and mounted up in one corner to use as a storage cabinet. It still has the door with the magnetic seal on it and everything. In there is where he keeps the glue. So I open it up and grab a bottle of Elmer's wood glue. I head back to the room with the pool table, take the plaque down from the wall, pull the tape off of the fragments of the badge, glue the badge back together as best I can, then glue the whole thing onto the wooden base. By the time I'm done, Mom's calling me up for dinner. I stash the plaque underneath the old couch so it'll be horizontal and out of sight while it sets up. After dinner, I rush through my homework, then go back down to the basement and play more Nintendo while I wait for the plaque to finish drying. When I think it's been long enough, I pull the plaque out from under the couch, check to see that the pieces of the badge are going to stay in place, and when it seems like they are, I hang the plaque back up on the wall. If you're staring right at it, you can tell it's been broken and put back together, but at a glance, it looks normal. I go upstairs, go to bed. For the next few days, I'm nervous that Dad will notice, but he doesn't notice. Nobody does. Eventually, I forget about it. A few years go by. Now I'm 16 and Pap, my dad's dad, decides to remodel the room in the basement with the pool table so it can be my bedroom. Up until this point, my little brother and I have been sharing a room. Pap spends that whole summer redoing the room. He puts up a new ceiling, new paneling on the walls, builds a closet in that corner where the old couch and the stereo were, has carpet put down. Dad sells the pool table, which is the only downside. Everything else about the remodeled room is great. I've got my bed in one corner, my computer in the other, my own couch, my own bathroom, a mini fridge for drinks and snacks, and plenty of room to spare. Best of all, there's a door leading directly outside. That comes in handy when I finally start dating a girl seriously. I'm sure she appreciates not having to ring the front doorbell whenever she comes to visit. But before any of that happens, everything that's in the room before the remodel has to be moved out. So Mom and Dad are in there packing stuff up. I'm outside doing something. Mom comes out to get me, says, "Your dad wants to talk to you about something." So I go in, and there Dad is with his Sailor of the Month plaque. "Do you know who did this?" he asks me. And for a second, I consider lying and saying I don't know anything about it. I mean, he can't prove I had anything to do with it. But he can suspect. He can come to a place where he knows in his heart that his son knows what happened to his plaque and is lying to his face about it. I decide I've done enough already and I don't want to make it worse. So I confess. I hold up my hand and say that was me. And I explain about 3 years ago and Steve Thorson and gluing it back together. And I apologize. And Dad says, "Why didn't you just tell me about it when it happened? I could have fixed it up better than that." He looks down at the plaque in his hands. "That looks like shit," he says. I don't say anything. I just nod my head and stand there until he tells me to go. I can see that he's sore about it for the next few days, but he doesn't say anything more to me about it. Neither one of us ever mentions it again, in fact. When I'm 20, I move out of the house. After I'm gone, Dad turns my bedroom back into a game room. He buys a new pool table, this one's felt is the color of red wine, and installs a bar in the corner where my bed was. Most of the stuff from my bedroom that I don't take with me to my new place gets boxed up and moved into the next room, which used to be Mom's sewing room, but is now mostly for storage. This one time I'm over visiting Mom and Dad, and I end up down there rummaging through my stuff, looking for a DVD or something. I can't remember exactly what it was. And while I'm moving things around, I see this open cardboard box on the floor, stuck back in the corner next to my dad's gun safe. It's got some old framed photographs in it, a few other knickknacks, and my dad's Sailor of the Month plaque. Years before, when he's discovered the plaque has been broken, Dad asks me, "Do you know what it means to be Sailor of the Month?" He tells me, "Not everybody gets one of these. Do you understand?" And I don't understand. Not really. I've never been in the Navy. I've never spent months at a time on a ship, working side by side with people, putting my life in their hands as they put theirs in mine. None of my friends ever died in helicopter crashes. Dad knows I don't understand, and it hurts him, I think. It hurts him that there is this part of him that I won't ever be able to know, because he does understand. He knows what it means. Maybe that's why he decided to tuck it into a box and leave it in a dusty corner of the basement. Or he wouldn't have to look at it anymore.